Rural Women's Day. So this year's 2020's International Rural Women's Day is about building the resilience of rural women in the wake of COVID-19. So strengthening sustainable livelihoods and wellbeing. So as I said, welcome. And if you please can turn your cameras on, that would be great. Keep yourself on mute, except when we're in the breakout rooms, and we'll use the chat box to collect questions and also to share. So I'm quite happy for you to chat away in the chat box as we go along. So I'm Jeanette Long, for those of you who don't know me. I'm an extension professional who works for herself, based in South Australia, and I also farm with my husband Bill and son Will. We farm on Eyre Peninsula and have a little farm in the Clare Valley, which is where I live most of the time, but about to head over for harvest. I'm really passionate about rural women, and anyone that knows me will know that I've been working in this space for my entire career. And a lot of it has been about building the capacity and confidence of rural women that I work with. So I've been involved with things like Partners in Grain, being the national chair, on the board of Australian Women in Ag, South Australian Women's Advisory Council was a rural women's rep, helped organise a national women's summit some years ago, and for the last 8 years I've been co-facilitating Stepping into Leadership program in South Australia for the South Australian government. So my career is packed with extension and also very focused on rural women. When I graduated from Roseworthy Agricultural College back in the 80s, it was a long time ago, there were 2 girls who graduated in my year. I think I worked it out that 5% of the course were girls, and 2 of us graduated back in 1986. When we look at that now, it's something like 50% of our graduates are rural women, and many of them are attracted to roles in extension. So we are seeing quite a large number of women working in the extension roles, which is fantastic to see. Great to see so many women coming through and getting involved in ag. Yesterday, I facilitated for a corporate farm in Australia that's funded by Australian Super Fund, and they've decided that they want to be an employer of choice for women. So it was really great to hear some of the young graduates talk about comments like, I feel really safe in this organisation, this is a really inclusive workplace, and gender doesn't matter here. You know, they're machinery operators, they're doing all sorts of roles. However, when we step back and look at that organisation, there's still very few women in the leadership roles. Lots of women doing admin on farms and lots of young women working as graduates. So one of the comments one of the young women made is, she said, well, I hope that by the time I'm Jeanette's age, that a lot of these gender issues have disappeared. And I said, well, so do I, because when I was your age, I was saying exactly the same thing. So let's hope that by the time, and she's probably about 28, so hopefully by the time she gets to where I am now in my mid-50s, we have seen that big change that, as they said, they feel very safe and that gender doesn't matter in this organisation. We are very fortunate today to have 3 great speakers. We have Kate Johnson, who has joined us from Queensland, Jane Weatherley from New South Wales, Ruth Nettle, who's in Melbourne. We do sympathise with you, Ruth, and hope you're out of lockdown soon. And of course, we have Denise Bewsell from New Zealand. The first thing I'm going to do, though, is send you off to have a little chat to one another, get to know who we've got online. So I'm going to send you off to breakout rooms for about, we'll do it for about 7 minutes, breakout with 4 people. And I want you to have a chat with each other, introduce yourselves, and share something that you enjoy about your role with extension, and maybe, you know, do that connection to rural women from an extension perspective. So Chrissy, if you can send everyone off to breakout rooms, that would be great. Thank you. Was that fun, Jane? First time to a breakout room?
On Zoom, yeah. Oh, look, worked a treat. I think it's part of the magic is having a fairy in the background that's got absolute control and skill of it all, that just does it for you.
All good, Jeanette.
Yeah.
Okay, we're all back. Welcome back.
We're back. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you had a great chat and got to meet some people. And if you, as I said before, if you can turn on your camera, that would be fantastic. We can see you all. If you're on gallery view, which to get to gallery view, you go to the top right-hand corner of your screen where you've got a little view button. If you click on gallery view, you'll be able to see everybody rather than just a big screen of me talking. So it's nice to see everybody because we do fit on one screen today, which is great. Right. I'm really excited to introduce our first speaker. We're going to start with Jane. So Dr. Jane Weatherley has been the Chief Executive Officer for Integrity Systems Company since 2016, which includes being responsible for all traceability, biosecurity, and the initiation of the industry data platform across the MLA group. Before doing this, Jane was the General Manager, Livestock Productivity, Managing Meat Standards Australia, Livestock Genetics, and Sheep Productivity RD&E. Prior to that, Jane had many positions in the red meat extension, farming systems research and development and evaluation. And Jane is also still involved in her family beef operation on beautiful Bruny Island in Tasmania. So Jane, you've had a long and interesting history for someone so young.
I was going to say, you make me sound like I'm about 105.
I always look at you and think, wow, what you've achieved in the time that you've been working. So Jane, would really like to hear from you. What's a highlight of your career in extension today?
Oh, look, I guess along the way, I've found it's been really about trying to make sure you grab every opportunity along the way that you have, despite thinking that that whether or not you're ready for that a new role in extension, or you have a convincing argument in your head that there's no way in hell that you can actually do something. So my crusade across my career has always been about making every post a winner. A highlight, I guess, was when I pulled up stumps from Sydney when I was with MLA to start with, and went back to Tassie and worked for Rabobank. And at that point, so I was essentially a rural manager for a particular region, which essentially it's more than just a transactional type role. You actually are very much involved in farm family businesses and very much part of their businesses. So the extension component of facilitating change and helping that business grow is very much front and foremost of what you're doing. So that was a massive shift from what I was doing at MLA, which was managing extension programs for the beef industry and sheep industries, and getting back to the coalface of working one-on-one with farm families and working through their business management, setting up business cases for finance, and then when it all came off and was successful in an application, it was essentially life-changing to those businesses. So that being able to ring them up and say, you've been successful in your application for finance, even though it's additional debt, in those circumstances, it was the process you go through is so comprehensive that it's meant to be really beneficial to help that business grow. So being part of that was just incredibly rewarding. And really, like I say, you become almost part of the family, and you become very good friends, particularly with the women in the establishment, because they're largely involved in managing the finances and things. So that was a really, really good highlight, doing that and just totally, I guess, changing tack in my career for a period of time. And then, of course, I came back to MLA and that was again back into an extension role, managing right across the comms and communication of MLA programs. But I guess the highlight there was really getting the gig as CEO, and that was really a totally unintended event in my life, because I was never thought in a million years that I would end up as a CEO. But it was just by chance that it happened, because and out of a random presentation that I did when I was on the executive for MLA, we were all challenged to come up with what we think the next big thing will be for agriculture and industry, and what we'd like to do about it. And my pitch was around harnessing data for industry. So what can we do, particularly for the producer end, of how we can basically consolidate and help get really easy access to data that will help them in their business. And at the same time, this role was being advertised, and the MD at the time really saw that the integrity systems company that needed to be formed is essentially a data company, which is exactly what we are. So the traceability system, 100% based on data, LPA, our on-farm QA program, 100% verified through data. So anyway, so going from thinking that I would not have a chance in hell or even be interested in a job to here I am now being in this role for about 4 years later. So yeah, there's been a huge number of highlights, and yeah, all the way along, just I guess not even the women in the organisation that I work with, there's some tremendous people that are just really strong, very committed, and you know, just really driven, inspirational people. So
great. Thank you, Jane. And I think you probably, you know, picked on a few highlights there for a lot of people that work in Extension around that we do become great friends with the people we work with, and that ability to work one-on-one, and managing data, I think, is a really important thing, particularly for the women, because, you know, I know in our family business, I'm the one that gets dumped with a lot of the data management. So yeah. Thank you, Jane. Now, we will also be asking questions. So if there's questions that pop into your mind as people are speaking, please pop them in the chat box, and we'll go back and check in afterwards and capture all of those as well. So we'll move on now to Ruth. So Ruth, from the city to the country and back again, Ruth began her career in agricultural extension in Tasmania at the age of 21. Her work with dairy farmers promoted a PhD journey examining farms as workplaces and changing social relations of employment in farming families and the role of extension in non-traditional fields. So Ruth leads the Rural Innovation Research Group and Agricultural Extension Education at the University of Melbourne. Ruth, you've had a very successful journey in agriculture, and I'm sure you've seen many changes and challenges over the years. So what's encouraged you to persist with a career in extension?
Thanks very much, Jeanette. Well, I didn't persist, did I? I left practicing extension after 10 years to pursue social science, and applying, I suppose, that early career to the broader challenges of innovation and change. But you're right. Really, I've taken that, and I still am directly engaged around extension. And I suppose, you know, what I've found is that extension experience is worthwhile and valuable in every aspect of your role, and is really important more broadly to the world. But I've picked up on the question that you just asked me there about persisting, and I thought, if Jane talked about capturing opportunities and making every post a winner, and I suppose the other side of that is persistence. And what I recognised, I suppose, when I left extension practice or practitioner and expanded, I suppose, my world's view into other areas and international work, I did learn that it was the extension experience and practice and those relationships that I have kept with me throughout. And so the idea of persistence and perseverance, I think, sort of sums up, I think, my journey. And I thought it's really important on Rural Women's Day, actually, to think about perseverance. So, you know, I Googled it. And the first word that came up was doggedness. So determination. And I sort of thought, oh yeah, I think I see that so much across rural women and what they achieve and what they do, that things can be hard slog, and women don't, generally don't give up. They get things done, they make a difference. And it's not always charisma or knowing the right person that gets over the line. It is that hard work and doggedness. Despite a lot of challenges. And I think, I've had a few, but I think that many women and others will share, that you can be marginalised, you can be overlooked, you can be told to go away, you can be just ignored. But what you do generally, I find, with talking to many women, is you press on, you go round, you go over, you go under. And I think it's something that's worth celebrating, this idea of perseverance. So Jeanette, when you opened, it's a similar experience with your experience. When I was younger and at uni and graduated, I didn't really pay that much attention that I was the first in my family to go to uni. I was the only one of about maybe 20% of women studying ag. You were just there and you just lived it. And then when I went to Tasmania, my first job out of uni, I didn't really pay attention that I was only the third female to be employed in the state in a dairy extension role. People told me that and I went, oh, well, righto. But, now here at the University of Melbourne, we do see, as you said, 60% of women studying ag, and we celebrate that. But as you also said, Jeanette, I've attended a Council of Deans of Agriculture meeting, no other women. And, I was recently promoted to professor in our school here at the uni, and this increased the women professors in our school from 2 to 3. So we may not pay much attention to this, I think, sometimes when we're living it and we're there. But I think it shows perseverance, and more of it is going to be what it takes, as well as changing some of the systems along the way. I think in sticking with extension, I think I suppose what I've learned is having to decide. I think what Jane said, like deciding what's important to you and what's needed to convince and bring others along as well. And look, I have had a few false starts on a lot of things I've done in my career. But I suppose one of the things being here at the University of Melbourne was that or the importance, I suppose, of making a difference in where you are. And what I could see was a decline in ag extension education around the world. And thinking, plus sort of a very anti-sentiment, I suppose, about the role of extension. And I just thought to myself, like, this is something I can do something about. And I'm in an education institution. Surely I can turn this around, at least in my realm of influence. So today we've got undergrad specialist subjects, a master's specialisation, ag extension and innovation, and micro-credentials running as we speak. And so I know that all these things can be tenuous and undermined potentially, but something that I hope is sustainable and is a legacy is that in ag extension education. But I do like to emphasise to people when they say, oh, that's great, well done. I say, well, yeah, it only took 15 years. So I think perseverance and navigating systems and having some luck and good help along the way, is the most important thing. But without perseverance, how can we achieve things? And I thought just finally, Jeanette, at the moment, I have a federal government committee role. I'm on Minister Littleproud's national strategy for the agricultural workforce. And as part of this, for the last 6 months, despite being in lockdown, I've had the privilege to speak with over 300 people from all over Australia, farmers, unions, regional development organisations, industry, all over rural and regional Australia. And I've read 100 submissions. And what I've witnessed even there is that perseverance and innovation in what matters most, from women in particular in this ag workforce area. And I tell you, the women are a force to be reckoned with, and the clear and vital role of women in leadership in rural and regional areas and in the workforce space is inspiring. And I'm hoping that our recommendations are going to really empower more of that. So Jeanette, you asked me what's encouraged me to persist with a career in extension. Well, I've wavered, to be honest, but I think I found a way to contribute and expand horizons at the same time. I still hold with me those first few months as a 21-year-old, walking farms, working with families, understanding motivation, working on change. And I still draw on that every day, whether I'm dealing with university management, whether I'm policymakers, whatever I do. So I think perseverance has kept me on, kept me sort of thinking about the importance of extension to I suppose, well, the impact that it has, the inspiration it provides, and the importance of it for ag and ag extension, the community and the planet, that it thrives off the perseverance of people. So that's what I'd like to, yeah, sort of share about that journey.
Thank you so much, Ruth, and thank you for your persistence, because we all know, you know, the ag extension training bit has been you know, has fallen off the radar, and it's great to see the University of Melbourne picking that up and offering that out there again, because it's certainly needed. And we're very glad that you've persisted with the industry and persisted in your journey in supporting rural women. I did have actually Sue Middleton from Western Australia, who was a previous Rural Woman of the Year, do a little session with my group the last 2 days, and she passed a comment that women don't break, we just bend, which I quite liked, because I thought it's quite true when we think about the resilience and persistence, that we just keep on taking more and we just keep bending. So thank you, Ruth. Now we're over to Denise. So Denise grew up in rural Victoria and now lives in Christchurch on the South Island of New Zealand. Denise, if you've ever done a workshop with Denise, you'll know she's a chocolate addict. She's great to have facilitating because she loves to share her chocolate, which is really nice for people like me that also love chocolate. She loves a good book, and she's currently working for the red meat sector in New Zealand in the Red Meat Profit Partnership, where she supports facilitators and she helps spread ideas of effective way to enable change. So Denise, I'd like to know from you, what is it that excites you about enabling change?
Aside from the opportunity to share chocolate, although I do have to point out that I have the sharing stash and I have my stash. And so you get to share the sharing stash, but yeah, I'm a chocoholic. There's got to be some for me. So anyway, aside from that, I was thinking about this, and you know, you look around the world at the moment, and you can see, you could take a really negative perspective and go, people are making bad decisions. Like leaders, you know, who should be knowing better are just, you know, making bad decisions, doing terrible things. But working in enabling change kind of flips your perspective, I guess, because you can see that people have potential. When you work in that space, you can see that if you support change, then and people grow in their confidence to change, and they make the change that you've supported, then it kind of has spin-offs. It has these flow-on effects, the implications for other areas of their lives or business or that kind of stuff. And so it kind of gives you a different perspective that people have the potential to really grow and develop and change and make amazing, you know, transformations and really do some pretty cool things like Ruth shared and like Jane shared, like awesome stuff. So, and I guess I'm seeing this in our action network with our small groups of sheep and beef farmers around New Zealand, and we're just hearing these stories of farm businesses, and particularly where they get the farm team together. So it's not just the male farmer, because, you know, only men farm, no. But we get the farm team together, and there's just so much cool stuff happening in those small groups where it's really, really flying. And we're hearing those stories where it leads to a change. You know, they joined the group for a particular reason and they make that change, but then there's spin-offs. They're confident enough to make other changes and grow and develop their business in different ways and explore different opportunities. And how cool is that when you're helping support that kind of change? And even like I've been really involved in the training of the facilitators for those small groups, and it's just really cool supporting facilitators with their perspectives as well, and trying different things, trying some new things. And as we support them, seeing how once they change what they're doing and helping the group, then yeah, they get that confidence and feedback to try different things themselves as well. So yeah, so that's why I'm enthusiastic about being in this supporting change environment, because people are good. Well, actually, no, people can be really frustrating, but you can give them chocolate and work on them. So yeah, that's from me.
Excellent. Thank you, Denise. Thank you. Love the chocolate. And I've been doing a bit of work with Denise in New Zealand, so it's a great program she's involved with. So if you're interested to find out more, have a look, Google the Red Meat Profit Partnership and have a look at the fantastic work Denise has been doing over in New Zealand. It's really worth investigating. Okay, our last but not least is Kate. So we have Kate Jackson. Kate has lived all over Australia, but Central Queensland is the place she now calls home. She says it's a slice of paradise and a unique blend of country and coast. So originally a city girl, Kate says she's always been drawn to agriculture. She works at the Fitzroy Basin Association as a land management officer. So Kate, I'm curious to know that as a city girl, what attracted you to agricultural extension?
I mean, it depends how far back you go, really, but from a very young age, I wanted to work with animals. And when I moved to Bathurst in one of my many moves, I discovered agriculture and, yeah, started learning all about it. And honestly, since then, I haven't even looked at a different career path. I always wanted to work in agriculture. It didn't matter in what facet. But, yeah, I always knew I wanted to work in agriculture. Yeah, I love the people, I love the lifestyle, and contrary to popular opinion, I love the challenges that it brings. I don't shy away from a decent challenge. So yeah, agriculture has its many challenges, whether it's rain or drought or being a woman in agriculture. Yeah, bring it on. But yeah, so the extension role itself, I love being able to help people. I love connecting people to other resources, to other information sources. I like connecting people with other people. So this role is perfect for that for me. The amount of people that I've been able to meet and introduce to other people and connect is incredible. So yeah, it's a huge role. I've learned a lot since I started. When I got the job at FBA, it had been 7 years since I'd worked in agriculture, so I had a lot of learning to do myself. I had to play a lot of catch up with what producers were doing these days, the practices that they were putting in place, and just the paradigm shift that was really happening between conventional farming and more holistic farming. So it's been a massive learning curve. I can't believe I've only been here for 2 years. It feels like I've been here a lifetime with the amount of things that I've learned along the way. So yeah, I get to work with a lot of amazing women. Our office here at FBA is predominantly women. Our CEO is a woman. So it's really empowering to be surrounded by so many knowledgeable and yeah, really bright women. So it's very exciting. Actually, it's funny, when Ruth was talking about perseverance, she mentioned persistence and perseverance and then determination. And I mean, for someone to be out of ag for 7 years and just kind of keep plodding along in the background and knowing that one day I'd work my way back there in whichever form. Yeah, I guess I just always had those things plugging along in the back of my mind of, just keep persisting, keep persevering, and eventually something will come along. And it did. I got a job at FBA. So yeah, it's honestly, it's incredible what I'm able to do in my job here.
Excellent. Thanks, Kate. And it's great that you're able to come back, because we so often lose wonderful, great minds out of the industry who don't come back. So very pleased that you have come back.
Thanks.
So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to send you off to breakout rooms to have a little chat. And I want you to come up with some questions that you would like to ask the panel, any of the panel. And when you come back, pop some questions in the chat box. If it's for a specific person, then let's put their name there so I know. If it could go to any of them, that's fine too. So we'll send you off to breakout groups to have a chat and come up with some questions for our panel. If you have any questions, please pop them in the chat box. Katie's put up a question. What's one thing you knew 5 years ago which would have made your life easier? So what is one thing that if you knew 5 years ago would have made your life easier? I'm going to throw that one at Jane first.
Yeah, thanks, Jeanette. I was actually just talking to Katie about that particular question, and I guess my immediate response was just about sort of backing yourself when you take on a role that you're really uncertain about, and you think, oh my God, what have I done? I can't see how I'm ever going to be able to do this. Just to, I guess, realise that that there is always support around to help you, build the skills and understanding capabilities that you might need. So, and really have the confidence that that you were put in a position because they thought that you could do it. And I think that if I'd have had a lot more confidence and backed myself and really drew on the support that was around me rather than sort of battled through, then I think I would have enjoyed the first couple of years a lot more than what I did. I was always fairly strung out and working long hours to try and make sure I was doing a good job. So yeah, that's one of the things I think would have made
Excellent.
it easier.
Thank you, Jane. And Denise, I might throw that question at you too.
Yeah, and I just echo what you said, Jane. It's because I was thinking the same thing. It's about finding that support around you and not being afraid to go and it's not admitting that you can't do the job to ask for support or can't do something, but it's about making the most of it and realizing the potential, I guess. And so, yeah, I think, yeah, if I had have realized that a bit sooner, there was lots more help out there, lots more support, and you find, yeah, you can find people in all different ways. Yeah.
Thank you. And I'll just give a little plug for the APEN mentoring program, because APEN does have a great mentoring program. And I would just reflect back, but what both those ladies just said, that for me, there's been times in my life when I've just thought, I wish I had reached out and got some support, because it would have really helped my journey at particular times as well. So there's plenty of people in the great APEN family, so reach out when you need it. Next question I'm going to throw at Ruth. So Ruth, what can APEN do to progress the inclusion of extension training into the university sector into the future?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's not easy to answer. I could go through the process that I've had to go through to get it at Melbourne. But what I know is that you have to have the support of the non-ag extension person in the tertiary institution. You have to have evidence that there's demand. I know universities or education providers get a lot of flack because, we're not responsive to industry needs or not this or not that. But, for years, government has withdrawn funding and said, find funding other ways. So, of course, we rely on international students, and of course we have to, yes, we're a not-for-profit, but we're a business, we're a not-for-loss. So we have to look at ways that are efficient. So you have very low demand, you can't run things. So you've got to, understand that. It's great to have a supporting group like APEN that says this is, we need this, we want this. So you have to have this suite of things that line up. And that's what I was able to do in a slow way, I suppose, through the uni system. And to the point that the business case we were able to do that drew off a national project looking at the ag extension system in Australia, funded by the government, the Rural R&D for Profit program, we were able to survey, and I know APEN does this as well, to find out sort of what the potential demand might be. And that was the basis of the business case I could put in. And we were the first micro-credentials of the University of Melbourne. We beat medicine, we beat engineering. The first micro-credential is in agricultural extension at the uni. So it's a bit of a long, there's more to it, you know, had to get tick off by academic board, had to get but it's having that, that demand, and someone that can look independently and just say, oh, it's not just that extension, you know, that person that just rabbits on about extension all the time saying this is important. And I know, because I'm on the sub-education committee for APEN, that I know that talking to my colleagues in the other unis, they had programs, they had support, and then they lost that support at a high level. And not for any bad reason, it just, people change, things move on. And so actually, this is something you got to work on all the time. So yeah, but so APEN, being a professional organisation and association, shows, hey, this is, you know, this is something that is global and is across all of Australia and every sector. So that's important, but then it's about working with each uni differently, and yeah.
Good, thanks Ruth. Something we just have to keep working at by the sound of that.
Perseverance.
Perseverance again, yes. Kate, there's been a couple of questions about the influence of, you know, education courses and how did you build your extension knowledge and skills. So if we're you know, someone coming in from a city environment, I thought that might be a good question to throw at you. And where should new industry entrants start to gather those skills, perhaps?
So I, unlike a lot of people in my office, I actually, and probably a lot of people in this virtual room, I don't have a university degree. I have 3 diplomas, and as I mentioned, a lot of persistence, a lot of perseverance. So despite the fact that in the back of my mind, there was constantly a nagging thought of maybe if I got a degree, I'd get a job in agriculture easier. And it never eventuated. I just kept persisting in other avenues. So I think while a formal education is fantastic and it is a great tool, it isn't the only tool that will get you a job in extension. Essentially, my on-ground experience got me the job at FBA. The fact that I had that I'd worked on properties before, I'd been on the ground, I knew how it worked, and I'd worked on properties. As I said, I worked in the Territory, I worked at Claremont. I'd been on the ground. I sort of knew what it was like to be out there pushing cattle through yards and things like that. So I guess I understood the practicality of it all. Well, not all of it, but some of it. I saw that side of it. So that essentially helped me. But then when obviously as part of learning more about extension, I had, so I went through the APEN mentoring program, which was fantastic. So I got to have access to essentially whenever I liked, and a very experienced extension officer who he was really great. I was able to ask him many questions. He was able to kind of I guess broaden the horizons a bit on what extension was about, and how to improve my skills and how to foster the ones that I already had. So yeah, but multifaceted, I guess, would be, if I had to say one thing, it's a multi-pronged approach. It's not a silver bullet.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks, Kate. And really good to see, because I think it's so important to have some of those practical skills so you really relate well to the people that you're working with. You know, and we've got Jane, Denise and Ruth here, all with PhDs. So great to see. And I certainly don't have one of those.
No PhD, sorry. Can't claim
you
a
don't.
PhD. No. I'll take the honorary one, absolutely.
So yeah, it's you know, we can come into extension from so many different ways, and having that practical element is really, really helpful to us. So thank you, Kate. For a last question, because we're running out of time, is we've got a couple of questions about mentors and how critical mentors were in your role in extension and importance of mentor. So Denise, you're nodding. Can I throw to you first?
Yeah, so I want to echo what people have said about the things like the APEN mentoring scheme, which is, you know, formal process for mentoring, but I don't underestimate the informal mentoring that you can pick up along the way, because there's people that I've worked with, that I've seen doing things, and it's just like asking that question, taking the opportunity to go out with them for an activity, or you know, work alongside them in a project or something like that, and they would never necessarily have known that I was a mentee of theirs, but I was soaking up what they were doing and kind of, oh, okay, you do it like that. That's a good idea. Yeah, so that informal process of mentoring, because no one person is ever going to give you all of the answers. So grab it from where you can is, yeah, what I reckon. So, yeah.
Thanks, Denise. Jane, I might throw the same question at you.
Oh, yeah, thanks, Jeanette. And I guess for me, being on a panel session on International Rural Women's Day wouldn't be the same if we didn't mention the great Amabel Fulton, who was one of the greatest rural women, certainly in my life, that has ever been. And so we lost her over a decade ago to breast cancer. But the impact that she had as my mentor, you know, to this day, she's still there, influencing how I do things. And one of the greatest things she ever taught me was, you know, everyone stuffs up. And so, you know, just get used to it. You're going to bugger up whether you like it or not. But it's all about what you do about it from there on in. So, you know, get over it, move on, and work out what you're going to do about it. And that's really the measure of success. So, yeah, mentors are critical, and APEN for extension is critical. You know, that was the best thing for me when I first started way back in the 90s, to have that engagement with a network of people who kind of knew what you were talking about, you know, about this whole extension thing. So, yeah, you know, mentors are one of the greatest things you can have right at the very beginning of your career and all the way through.
Right. Thank you,
Jeanette, can I pop in there, Jeanette? Yeah, I just want to share, I totally agree. And I just want to share, as part of an academic mentoring program in the uni, I got to shadow a laureate professor of physics. So the idea of shadowing and mentoring, so shadowing is just basically following someone around. And, you know, he was instrumental in getting the synchrotron into Victoria, you know, the thing that sends light, you know, anyway, but that involved, you know, negotiations with federal government and state government and getting $10 million. I was there as he was on the call getting the $10 million, you know, that sort of stuff. And I just, you know, that was a great experience. And he's now a Deputy Vice Chancellor at La Trobe, and I can ring him if, you know, for anything. But I just think even just, you know, asking someone, can you spend a day with them, or half a day or an hour or something? It just showed to me, yeah, mentoring, shadowing, getting a new experience, you know, just how refreshing and great it can be. So yeah, I just thought I'd throw that one in. I still don't know much about synchrotrons though.
Thanks, Ruth. And Kate, a final comment from you, because we're almost out of time.
Thank you. Yes, I was nearly going to butt in, but I didn't want to go take us over. But I wanted to back up what both Denise and Ruth said, and Jane said it as well, I believe, is, it's the people that you work with as well, that I've certainly received mentoring from. I work in quite a big office, something that I'm not used to, and the people that I work with were invaluable, really, to how I learned how to be an extension officer. I still learn every day. So yeah, without them, I would have just sort of been fumbling along, and sometimes I feel like I still am, but just having access to them in the office who have got more experience, being able to ask the questions, I still do it to this day. I still ask for questions, ask for advice from the people that have been doing it a bit longer than me. So yeah, use the support network that you've got around you.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Kate. Thank you all for sharing. And I'll just add, from a mentor perspective, when you tap someone on the shoulder and say, will you mentor me? It's actually an honour. So don't ever be afraid to tap someone on the shoulder, even if it's, you know, could we catch up? I'd really love you to mentor me on, even if it's a short time, because it is an honour to be asked, and we all are very happy to support and grow people in ag extension, rural women, anyone really. So always do that. And Jane, I'd also like to acknowledge Amabel Fulton today, because Amabel was also one of my mentors, and Amabel made me brave enough to go national with my work. So I've been very South Australian focused in my work, and starting to work with Amabel, she gave me the confidence to step outside of South Australia. And now I've been working in New Zealand with Denise. So, and she popped into my mind recently because I put out to the ether to run a public program in facilitating change. And she was the first person I thought about when I hit the publish button on LinkedIn, feeling very nervous, shaking in my boots. So she was a great supporter and one of the founding members of APEN. So yes, acknowledging Amabel today is certainly a very important thing to do. I would really like to thank Pat, who's also been a mentor to me. I think Pat and I have mentored each other. So Pat, thank you very much for organising today and making today happen. We wouldn't be here without you. And also Ro, for all the background stuff you do, making it all happen. We really appreciate both of you too for everything you do for APEN. And of course, Chrissy, thanks for doing the tech work, keeping it all flowing for me. It's great to have, when you run these sessions, to have somebody looking after the technology rather than doing it all yourself. So thank you all. I hope you all go and enjoy and celebrate the rest of International Rural Women's Day. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Jeanette.
Thanks, Jeanette.
Everyone.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Everyone.
Nice to see you all.
Bye.
Good to see you all. Bye.